Hi, Taylor T. Carlson, and I'm back with another video for you. Going back to the vinyl collection today, I actually just did a trade with my friend Lynn last night, and I got several new records to add to my collection, and I'm going to go through today and just show off all the records that I've gotten. It's a pretty big stack, but if you're a classic hard rock and heavy metal fan, you're going to see a few things in here that are pretty interesting, and I'll be sharing my opinions on a few of these releases as well. So, let's get started and see what we got. First thing I got in the trade was this. This is Blue Oyster Cult Mirrors. This was a bit of a departure for Blue Oyster Cult because it was actually a more commercial effort, and it was their first album not produced by their usual producer, Sandy Pearlman. And so when this came out, it got a pretty polarizing reception, although it did produce a few minor hits, including the title track, In Thee, Dr. Music, and The Great Sun Jester, which was their first of 3 tracks that were co-written by science fiction author Michael Moorcock. And this has the original insert intact, so there's the photo, and that's just like production information and credits. And let's keep moving down the stack. This is probably the real major find of the collection. This is Quiet Riot 2. This was the second of 2 albums they made with guitarist Randy Rhoads before he went off to join Ozzy Osbourne's band. These 2 records were only released in Japan. Honestly, I think this might be a bootleg pressing, but since these are so hard to find anyway, I'm just happy to own the album in some shape or form, and it's really interesting to go back and revisit Quiet Riot during this early phase. Honestly, that's one of the worst album covers I've ever seen, but the music on there, not surprisingly, is pretty damn good. Rest in peace, Randy Rhoads. Next up we have Y&T, Contagious. Y&T, always one of the most underrated rock bands on the face of the earth. These guys have put out so much great music over the years, but everyone knows them for the commercial, poppy-sounding song Summertime Girls, when in fact they've got several much harder rocking songs out there, which in my opinion are far better than that one. And this was one of their mid-80s albums. Got the insert there, got the lyric sheet right there, and then got the photos of the band members here. This is the Jimmy DeGrasso is on drums here. He's played with a bunch of bands, including Megadeth for one. Great drummer who definitely gets around, and I'm glad to finally have this album on vinyl. I've got quite a few Y&T on vinyl already, several of which I got signed by Dave Meniketti when I met him at a few shows over the years. But again, great band, great album, and a worthy addition to the collection. Next up is Asia Alpha. And this was actually sealed. I just barely took the shrink wrap off now. Asia was the supergroup that featured Jeffrey Downes from the Buggles, Steve Howe from Yes, Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and John Wetton, formerly of King Crimson and UK. This was their second album, probably best known for the hit song Don't Cry. Honestly, this is one of those bands that never quite topped their first album, but this sophomore album is still a pretty good effort. Here's the a little hard to see with the lighting, but there's the lyric sheet, and then there's photos of the band members. I actually saw these guys with the complete classic original lineup together back in 2010. It's been a decade now. I definitely feel old. And sadly, we lost John Wetton a few years ago, but his memory will certainly live on with these classic Asia records. And I'm very glad to add this one to the collection. This isn't exactly a hard rock or metal release, so it's a bit of a departure from most of what's in this stack, but a worthy addition nonetheless. Next up, Rainbow, Bent Out of Shape. Rainbow was Ritchie Blackmore's band after Deep Purple. They're probably best known for their first few albums in the mid-late 70s when Ronnie James Dio was their singer. He was replaced on vocals by Graham Bonnet, and then Graham Bonnet was replaced for their latter 3 albums by Joe Lynn Turner. Joe Lynn Turner would continue to perform with many artists over the years, including Yngwie Malmsteen, and he would even join Deep Purple for one album. This was the final Rainbow album, released in 1983 before they disbanded around that time. There have been several posthumous releases and attempts at semi-reunions, and this is just not plain sleeve, unfortunately. I don't know if this ever came with a more elaborate insert. Next up, and one of my personal favorites in this stack that I got, is Frehley's Comet Live +1. This was Ace Frehley's band after he left Kiss in the mid-late 80s, and then since then he started a solo career. The guy definitely keeps busy and still sounds great. This group, in addition to Ace Frehley, also featured vocalist guitarist Todd Howarth, who's played with several other groups, including being a touring member of Cheap Trick. I actually met Howarth a few years ago when he was a guest with a group out here in Vegas called the Sin City Sinners. And if you look closely, one of the credits on here, it's a little small and hard to read, is for Ed Trunk, who works for Megaforce Records, who put this out. That's Eddie Trunk, the heavy metal TV show host and DJ who's since become very popular over the years, and he still hosts shows on satellite radio, so he's a pretty popular personality in this industry. Another great addition, this is Ozzy Osbourne, No Rest for the Wicked. This was Ozzy Osbourne's 5th solo studio album, and the first one to feature Zakk Wylde on guitar, who later would go on to start the group Black Label Society. Got some tunes on here like Miracle Man, Tattooed Dancer, and one of my personal favorites, Bloodbath in Paradise. Any opportunity I have to get Ozzy on vinyl, I definitely don't want to pass it up. Here's the inside photos. And you got the lyric sheet on the back. And moving on down, this is a 12-inch single, Skid Row Monkey Business. And this isn't a traditional sleeve. This actually folds open into a poster, so we'll go ahead and do that right now. Got a little essay inside and a photograph of the band at the time. This, of course, being recorded during their glory years with Sebastian Bach behind the microphone. And here's what the poster looks like when you fold it out. It's a pretty cool shot of the band together. So there's also some additional band photos on this side. Another great addition. We just talked about Ace Frehley. Now here's a real blast from the past. This is Kiss Love Gun. This was their 6th studio album, and it was the final Kiss album to feature all 4 classic original members on every single track on the record. The artwork for this album was done by a guy named Ken Kelly. He also did Rainbow's Rainbow Rising cover and several covers for the band Manowar. I actually met him over at the Kiss Mini Golf here in town when they did a rock and roll flea market event a few years ago. There's the inner sleeve. So if I ever meet Ken again, I might try to get him to sign this sleeve for me. Here's one that's completely in a different genre altogether. This is The Time Ice Cream Castle. This is more of an R&B album. These guys, of course, were Prince associates, and they're probably best known for their association with Prince. This LP has the song Jungle Love, which is probably the biggest hit these guys ever had. Of all the Prince associates, these guys were probably the biggest commercial successes. And just a plain sleeve inside, so I'm not going to pull that out. And Toto, Hydra. Toto, of course, you hear a lot of their songs on classic rock radio all the time, like Hold the Line, Rosanna, Africa. This was their 2nd studio album, and even from the beginning, these guys had a great sound. This one's actually got a fold-open gatefold in the middle with some nice artwork, and then you got portraits of the band members right there. Another great addition right here. This is Queensryche, The Warning. Queensryche, one of the greatest hard rock, progressive metal bands there is. This was their first full-length LP. That put out their Queensryche EP prior to this, but first full-length album for the guys. And Queensryche nowadays doesn't have most of these members. Jeff Tate's off doing his own thing, but they are still, all of them are keeping busy doing their own things. So here's the I was going to say, there's an insert in here. This right here's an insert from a Whitesnake album, so that's clearly not the right insert. So, go figure. Next up, another Kiss-related record. This is the Vinnie Vincent Invasion self-titled debut album. Vinnie Vincent played guitar on the Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up albums. Great guitarist, but he didn't really sync with Kiss too well, and Gene and Paul have gotten a little tired of all the extremely lengthy guitar solos he was doing when he tried to steal the spotlight. Great group. This group actually had Dana Strum on bass before he joined Slaughter, and Robert Fleischman on vocals, who had previously been the singer for Journey for a very brief period. For their second album, he was replaced by Mark Slaughter. This album has the song Boys Are Gonna Rock, which might have been their biggest hit. And another great classic hard rock record, the 1978 debut from Van Halen. These guys have put out many albums over the years, but they've never topped this one, their debut from 1978. This is, of course, produced by the legendary Ted Templeman, who'd also worked with the Doobie Brothers, Aerosmith, Little Feat, Honeymoon Suite, and countless other artists. And right from day one, these guys sounded great. Here's the inner sleeve pictures. I noticed their singer is just called David Roth here, not David Lee Roth yet, so it goes to show just how young they were at the time. And another good one from the 80s. This is AC/DC Blow Up Your Video. Third and final album they recorded with drummer Simon Wright before he was replaced by former Firm drummer Chris Slade. This album doesn't get talked about very much, but it is a fairly underrated effort, and one that I was definitely happy to go back and revisit. On this side of the inner sleeve, you got the AC/DC logo, and then back there you got the obligatory lyric sheet. And another one of my favorite classic 80s bands, Dokken. This is Tooth and Nail, their second album, and the first album they put out to feature classic bassist Jeff Pilson, who'd go on to play with groups like Dio and the Macaulay Schenker Group. This had some of the group's biggest and best songs, including the title track, Into the Fire, Bullets to Spare, When Heaven Comes Down, Alone Again. It's one of those albums I'll certainly never get bored with. And then got a Monsters Claw photo on that side of the insert, and then over there you got your obligatory lyric sheet and photos of the band members. And the last one in this stack, Rat, Dancing Under Cover. Third album from Rat. This one, you don't hear quite as many hits from this as you do the first two, but this one's got Dance and Body Talk, both of which were fairly popular songs for the group. And then you look at the inner insert for this, and great photos of the band right there. And if you look at the credits, it's kind of small print, but right there it says a Burl Company production, B-E-R-L-E. That's Marshall Burl. He's the nephew of legendary actor and comedian Milton Berle. He was Rat's manager back in their original heyday, and he's also worked with several other artists over the years. Have you made any new vinyl pickups lately? Any great additions to your collection? What do you think of the collection you've just seen here? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Subscribe to my channel for more content, and give this video a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson, and I will see you next time.